I am Samantha. I am the learning and development lead at WorkSmart, and I am joined today by Marissa, our translator from the tech to the common man extraordinaire. And we're here to talk about Microsoft's AI, Copilot, and the ways that that can unlock your team's potential. Marissa has a Copilot license that she's been testing out, and all of us at WorkSmart are getting more and more jealous as we hear about the amazing things that it can do. So, Marissa,
Yes, very exciting. I'm grabbing my like one screen in front of me and this screen. And we are just 1 minute after start time, so we'll give it a second just to get folks to join,
absolutely.
and then we will talk all about the co-pilot of things.
I love this picture. I hadn't actually processed it before of the brains hooked into the computers.
It's like a natural extension.
Yep.
Weird. It's like George Jetson style.
Computers are lighting up your brain.
Yes. Well, I am set now. I got my things and my multiple coffee cups because technology is, only part of my caffeine dose for the day. And oh well, that shifted my. You still hear me?
Yep.
All right. I hit the space bar and it wanted to mute me.
No, don't let it. Copilot knew you
Yeah,
didn't really want to be muted.
that's right. All right. So we're talking about Copilot. We're talking about AI. We're talking about growth. And so we're talking about those things because the way we work is different, right? The world is changing. Samantha, in your role, when you're trying to find out like what people need in terms of training and education, um, are you coming across places where um, technology, like the skill set for technology, is lacking, or is there any trends in like the way we're working that's
Oh,
affecting?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in sort of a post-knowledge economy, right? Where knowing the thing isn't as helpful and knowing how to use the tool is a lot more helpful. But we're even getting to the point where there are so many tools and so many platforms that the folks who want to go train in our different technology platforms are going, okay, I have to learn all of this and how this works. And I have to figure out how all of these tasks get done. And so that's the pressure point for us right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. We've talked about it once or twice throughout our webinars and in our educational content and our one-on-one meetings with clients that the way we work continues to evolve. We're a lot more flexible, agile, but our reliance on technology is continuing to grow. And as we always say, we want to be able to do more, but not necessarily have to do more. And when you increase technology and its use case, you're definitely going to increase the inputs needed. And, how do we go from a very tactical um, workflow to being a little bit more streamlined so that we can do the things that are value add more often, right? So when I think about it, it's like, how can I be creative and not just simply create things? How can we maintain a competitive edge um, without needing to reinvent the wheel? I'm sure we all prioritize good hiring practices because we value our people and the unique qualities that they bring. And so, happy, healthy team means they're spending time on the things that bring them joy, that require their input versus maybe some of this other work that we're classifying as busy work. Sure, you've never heard that, Samantha.
Well, and that's what struck me about these statistics was I went over at the beginning and went, okay, we want to spend more time creating, right? That's the goal, is to increase that number, but then realizing that being creative is different than creating, that it takes so much work to make all of those PowerPoints and reports and presentations look aesthetically pleasing. From a learning perspective, you don't want a lot of busy noise distracting you from the content. And so how do you have to spend a lot of time making sure you don't have 17 different fonts in your PowerPoint presentation, making sure that you have headings that are all aligned the same way in your Word documents. And like that kind of creating time is definitely the busy work. I think you hit it on the head with you want creative time.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm thinking, well, I mean, I don't need to worry too much about my PowerPoint. If I'm putting together a presentation, do I need to worry about it in my role, or can I just hand it off to someone in marketing to do? But then when I'm thinking about it, I could offset that to another human, but then is that the best use of that human's time? So it is definitely a time for us to evaluate what work we want to spend time on and how we can um, offset the other pieces of our day to day so that we have that time. And the big thing for me here is that if small businesses, if we're not doing it, somebody else is. And so we don't want that innovation to pass, or the opportunity for innovation to pass us. And so that's why, these opportunities are not really pain points because we're able to do more. We're growing, we're reaching as small businesses. We don't have to be disconnected from the technology advantages that enterprises are using. Microsoft, Apple, Google, they're making the technology easier to adopt, which means that if you're attending right now, you're listening to us, you probably have already started to consider some of these questions. And if you haven't, you're probably going to get there soon. It's very similar to how we think about technology just generally when we're looking to take advantage of something for our business. Being thoughtful and having intention and purpose for that is going to help the success of the deployment, right? Um, there's lots of different considerations. There's infrastructure to support it, right? We're talking about technology, so there's some technology considerations. Data privacy and security, huge focus for nearly every organization, whether you're adopting AI or not. We want to protect the lifeblood of our organization and make sure the bad guys aren't getting into our systems. Integrating with other systems, like that is, what data sets are you going to need? So those are some technical considerations, but there are also some hurdles or opportunities from a non-technical perspective. What is the education and training on this topic, this tool set? What are the use cases for it? Do you have the buy-in across your leadership team and the department heads to be able to tell the story about how this does fit into your organizations? And so we're definitely hearing AI, artificial intelligence, advanced technology, Copilot, ChatGPT. What else am I forgetting? Insert name here. There's lots of technology, but being able to first map out what it is that you believe it can do for your organization is really going to help make sure that we start off on the right foot. Make sense?
Absolutely.
And of course, we want it to be scalable. We want it to grow with us. We don't want it to just like help us grow and then we outgrow it. We definitely want it to continue to grow. Those are good pains to have. And along with those, go ahead.
Well, and the exploration you were talking just now about needing to figure out whether it works, how you learn it. In the figuring it out, you're already learning it. Right.
Okay.
So
very good point.
It takes that 20 to 40 hours to learn the new AI platform. And you're going to be spending at least that long playing around with it, tinkering, figuring out how it works and how you can apply it to your specific situation. So
absolutely.
Those are kind of baked in together.
There's certainly a learning curve. When we introduce new applications or we change the way your team works in email, there's always an element of, telling the story of why, and then helping people have the boundaries to be in it and learn, but also be productive and secure. And for small to mid-sized businesses, based on my experience over the last 16 years, is that for a lot of us, that exploration in its application or its use cases is really how you're going to mature your business practices. Being able to see what are the advantages, the benefits, the easy pieces to achieve when we're talking about taking away or reducing, not taking away, but reducing the amount of time it takes to do some of these more tedious, more administrative tasks. What does that free up for us? What's the trade-off? If we're going to take some learning time up front, what are the outcomes that we're going to achieve? And spoiler alert, that's why we're here today, is to take some of the burden off of understanding what the tools can bring you and how you can easily jump in with Microsoft Copilot. It's why we're here. All right, so we're going to get into Copilot because, as I mentioned, there's lots of different tools, but we are specifically talking about Microsoft's tool. If you've watched any of our marketing videos in the past, it's probably not a surprise that we talk a lot about Microsoft and that I've said in the past that I have this relationship with Microsoft that they keep giving me more that I can't say no to, and now it's all ingrained in my workflow. But that's the key, right? The Microsoft philosophy is we want to be a tool that can be used for all things. It's not just a Microsoft environment. However, even the Microsoft environment itself works as a complete solution. And that's what Copilot is for this artificial intelligence, this time-saving, creative, not create world that we're starting to move into. And there are, in the previous slide, we talked about the considerations, and the first one that we mentioned was fit. We want it to align with our business objectives. Well, saving time and simplification and productivity and all of these things, being cost-effective and optimizing your budget, being secure, these are all likely going to fit into key pieces of your organization's business plan.
Question.
Are there any? Oh yeah, I was going to ask you a question, but I love this.
So all of these, when you look at this, these are a lot of things, but you don't have to go in necessarily, right? And click on like, well, how am I going to save time with Copilot? Or how am I going to simplify my workflow? Like, what has your experience been with just using it? Those things Are
I
those
don't
like
have to,
concerted efforts, or is that something that naturally happens?
it just naturally happens. I was going to say, like, the data protection is an easy one because it's set up in the background, it's managed, it's the Microsoft makes it easy to have that trusted, secure infrastructure. The things that we care about in terms of security are going to be already considered. But to your point, if when I'm working in Copilot and asking it questions, it's saving me time. It's helping to simplify the workflows of myself and others. And therefore giving me more time that I can choose to be productive, or I can choose to build personal connections with my colleagues. But it does ultimately give me that boost in productivity. And so it isn't, and that was a great question. It isn't about, okay, simplifying your workflow, it's going to be this particular feature set. It's really the whole feature set works together to do all of these things.
And I think that's a theme for Copilot. Like these are the effects that you get from basically the one input of a natural language processing talking about what you need. You don't need to have all five of these top things as like inputs or agenda items for yourself. Um, and same with going through your day to day. You don't need to come up with a list of what you're going to talk to Copilot about today. You just chat with it as you need it.
I have noticed that I've began talking very conversationally to Copilot.
You say please and thank you.
I don't, but if you ask my 8-year-old, she would probably tell you I don't do a really good job of saying please and thank you regardless. It's funny. It's when you try to teach someone something, they like to point out, whether you're good at it too. But I would, I haven't figured out if there's a way to name my Copilot yet.
Mm.
Maybe that's on the roadmap. But like here's the meat, right? The benefits that we just talked about. We want to be productive. We want to be creative, innovative. We want to have a competitive edge. What does that mean? Well, these are some of what I like to call the low-hanging fruit basket. We've got the technology baked into the Microsoft platform, Microsoft Copilot. And then we have all of the other things that we're doing, whether it's inside Microsoft or not, right? We're receiving documents, we're receiving emails, we're getting Teams messages. We need to put together information quickly to get it to our stakeholders. So in the example from earlier, where it's me, the account director, I need to meet with a client and present some information. It's not always the best use of time and resources. Time equals resources, but for me to send it over to Daria in marketing for her to work on it, because I'm kind of taking from my bank of time and putting it on Daria's bank of time. Being able to use Copilot to tell me what's going on in my email, summarize what are the things I need to pay attention to. Can I use this information to create a graphic, or find a graphic in our library of WorkSmart specific graphics that cut the time from, 2 hours could mean the difference between helping somebody be successful in their day-to-day versus not so much. And so the whole idea is that there's more than just one way to use the pilot that works with you to pilot your day. I was trying with something funny there, but it kind of came flat. I'll have to ask Copilot for a better joke. So that kind of takes us into the practice element of it. We're going to go through the actual pieces of the Copilot just to demonstrate how you can work. What are those use cases? Whether it's you running the business and or the team, the different department heads, making sure that the strategy aligns with the intended outcomes. But then also as a daily user of technology. These are all, the circle graphic here reminds us, it's intentional. It reminds us that the work we do throughout the day is connected in so many different ways. And so being able to know when you can use Copilot to cut down on let's change the verbiage there, to use Copilot to boost your efficiency and effectiveness. These different categories, almost all of us, regardless of your role and specifically what you're doing in that role, your industry, these are tasks that take up time and are required in today's working environment.
And they you're basically offloading your cognitive load onto Copilot, right? We talked a lot about like time management, but there's also your mental energy, your emotional energy, the energy that gets sapped from task switching that now in one place, or really in all the places, whatever Microsoft suite program you happen to be in, it can take some of that load off of you.
Absolutely. I like the way you said that. It can reduce the mental load.
Yep.
All right. Copilot in action. Task management. We could read through every email. We do. But Copilot can make it easier for us. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a second because I'm going to get into the technology. Pull up my Copilot. And then I'm going to reshare my screen. Ta-da. All right. So this is the paid version of Copilot. I am using it in a browser right now. And so if you see, you're just logged into Microsoft 365 and there's this beautiful colorful button on the side for Copilot. This is the icon in true Microsoft fashion. There is a very colorful icon. So everywhere you go within the Microsoft suite, when there's a Copilot functionality baked into the app, you'll see this icon. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to stay working in the browser. But you can work, and this is the Copilot app in the browser, but you can also use Copilot within the Teams app, whether you're using the app or the browser, Outlook, OneDrive, SharePoint, there's lots of different places. But for consistency in this conversation, browser it is. And there are lots of things here for you to be able to just kind of choose from already. There's some prompts. If you click this button, it'll give you some options. You can save your own prompts as you find them to be useful. There's just a way to get your toes dipped in the water if you're unsure of how cold it is. So, task management. We want to keep on top of all of the things. That's something that everyone can relate to. Specifically, we're working in teams for communication. It might be asynchronous. It might be back and forth. We've got meetings happening in teams. We've got emails and to-dos and all sorts of things across Outlook and Planner. And so lots of things. And we all have a job to do. And a very small part of that job is actually like wrangling all the things. The bigger part of the job is doing them. And so Copilot can actually help you summarize the recent communications. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and ask it to summarize the last 10 emails in let's just go with my education folder in Outlook. And so Copilot has said, let me curate the information. I'm analyzing it. It's looking specifically because I told it to look in a folder in Outlook. It's going ahead and creating that intelligence. And so here it is. Bulleted, quick information. It gives me links to the original source. So if I wanted to go into it and be able to see it, I certainly can. The other neat thing that I find a lot is the copy button. Many times when I'm asking Copilot for something, it's to summarize or it's to create a task list, which means it's not going to end up stuck in my brain forever, and I don't want to write it down somewhere. And so copying and putting it into where I want it to go or whomever I'm sharing it with, that's super helpful. The other thing I can do is ask what of these emails, what tasks are here. So of these emails, what tasks should I have on my radar? Again, this is what's happening with me in Copilot. I started out very mechanical. I would say things like summarize emails. And now I'm getting to the place where I feel like I'm having conversations. Might just be my mood. But here we are. It's done the same thing. It has said, here are those recent emails, and here's what I think you should do from them. In this email with Cardos from Cloud Info, they're looking for me to reply with my criteria. And I can decide if that's something for me. If I need to dig in a little bit more, there's some information in here that says, can you provide more details on this? What are the key points from one of those emails so that you can get more information? Making sense?
Yep. One of my favorite things too is I get overwhelmed when I see that like 10 emails, but you can just go back and say, hey, can you write this in one sentence max summary for each? And get a lot simpler version. Or you can get a lot more detail if that's what you're looking for from it.
Absolutely. Getting that presentation back up so I can share with you. We're moving on to the next piece in the circle. Okay, share my screen. All right, so we did task management. A lot of times when we're the emails that we're getting are a request to do something, whether it's a task or meeting. If you're interested in learning more about teams, making the best meetings out of teams, we have some resources on it. And the whole idea is that we want to meet when there's meaningful conversation to be had, not just to report on the news. And so we can use Copilot to help sift through our chats in Teams, our emails in Outlook, and to-dos in Planner to find the things that we need to be coordinating, right? We want to skip the chaos. You don't want to have last minute things pop up on your calendar or just, simply forgetting about. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to go back into the Copilot. I'm going to start a new chat. A lot of the times when you're working in with Copilot, as you start asking it questions, because of the way the AI works, it's looking to build on that conversation. And so when you shift topics, creating a new chat will give you kind of a blank slate instead of one of the hiccups that I've been overcoming is when I'm drafting, sometimes I use Word to be like my presentation, or not my presentation, but my like launch pad of things. And so I might have topic A, and then topic B, and then topic C. And if in that document, if I tried to get topic C to Copilot to expand on it, it's going to try to infer from the rest of the document. And sometimes I end up with a whole hot mess. So I'm getting used to the new chat clean slate. And again, we know we need to collaborate, but we want to be mindful of the requests that we have and the opportunities for us to request from others. So here we are using Copilot to say, based on my demo folder in Outlook, what meetings need to be scheduled? I imagine myself in like the Devil Wears Prada movie, and I'm asking somebody to on the other end of a phone line to go get me my coffee order when I talk to Copilot. So it's going to summarize stuff for us and say, these are the meetings we think you're going to want, but we don't know. And so you can click in to find them and get more information on it. The other thing you can do, now that you know what meetings you potentially need to schedule, again, it's not going to schedule for them for you just because you said, hey, Copilot, what meetings do I need to schedule? It's going to need your value add information to like your value add as a human is to say like, is this worth my time? Is this worth their time? What's the most meaningful way to get them? Just because they ask for a meeting doesn't mean we have to. But when we do need to schedule a meeting, how do we want to do that? So in one of those emails earlier when it was summarized, Jossis, a tool, has a demo that they're like, you should totally watch this. So I don't want to find the email and I don't want to read the email. So instead, I'm just going to ask Copilot to tell me when is the Justice demo scheduled for. There's no meeting scheduled. Well, how about if we check to see if there are any emails about the Justice demo? Look at that. Eric Simpson said I could get $30 gift card. This is getting better and better as I find it. So now it looks like there are opportunities to schedule a demo and attend a webinar. So how about when is the best day for me over the next 2 weeks? Let's see if it knows what I'm asking it or if I'm going to need to provide more context, because that's the other part about learning with the technology is that the inputs you yourself will get better at asking questions. This is how I thought of it when I was doing my Google searches. How do you get the most out of what you're asking so that your behavior will evolve over time? You'll get better as you get better responses, you'll continue to juke and jive to make it better. The other thing is the Copilot gets better. And so you get to learn Copilot, Copilot gets to learn you, and now we're doing all the things.
I'm wondering if this is going to turn out better, though, because if you ask my 5-year-old, what's the best day for me over the next 2 weeks, he would say Saturday because you have the most screen time. So if Copilot can do better than that,
I can identify with that. So we're skipping the chaos with meetings. We're finding the opportunities for meetings in the content that's already there. It's helping us to find them and respond to them and prioritize our time. The technology can't do that for us. So use it to present you with the information, use your brain to make a decision, and then use the technology to get it scheduled. Make sense? Right on, right on. All right, so moving back to the presentation. Let's see if I'm getting any faster at switching between these two. Look at that. Efficient. I should ask Copilot to do it for me. So we're keeping on top of all the things. we're skipping the chaos of our meeting requests, and now we're managing the calendar, because we have to be able to set aside time for the meetings. We have to be able, I wish I could say that every meeting I have scheduled stays in place from its original time, but that doesn't happen all the time, whether it's self-inflicted, school nurse calling, or just something of a priority in my workday that's just popping up. So being able to stay ahead of conflicts and make the most out of my time, and then also protecting my time, because if my calendar is open from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, chances are it's going to get filled with a meeting time. So I very much subscribe to I want to block time on my calendar for things that are also important for me to do. And so, get this, Copilot can help.
So this is a big shift, right? Because so far we've been pulling information from Copilot, which is what anybody who's played around with ChatGPT or any of these is pretty familiar with, is like ask a question, get an answer like a fancy search engine. But from what it says on our presentation, it's actually rescheduling the meeting for you. It's starting to not just inform, but perform.
That is right. And it's been there's lots of documentation out there. Microsoft does a great job of making educational resources available, how to use the technology. But in my practice of using it, it's taken some test runs to figure out exactly what Copilot can do for me. And there are times where I'll ask it to do something for me, and it will tell me, I actually can't do that, but here's what I can do. And it tells me how to get to the outcome I'm looking for, as opposed to maybe just doing it for me. But so in this case, I know that I have a meeting scheduled with Daria coming up. Let's see. Actually, let's just ask Copilot, see if it's going to keep me honest. When is my early October? With Daria. When's my first meeting in October with Daria? So it's going to take a look at my calendar, hopefully, and tell me, ooh, I have a meeting with her on October 1st at 1:30. All right. So now I'm feeling like I might be busy. Sorry, Daria. Can you suggest a few days to reschedule? Let's look at the following 2 weeks. I don't think that's a question. Here are some potential options. So because Daria is through WorkSmart, it has access to both of our calendars to see if we're busy or free. If I'm looking for somebody outside the organization, I don't think Copilot's that smart, but at least it can help me identify days that would work better. Of course, there are other tools you can use to help manage your calendar. Lots of folks use Calendly, but the idea is that we don't just schedule meetings through Calendly. We don't schedule meetings only through email. And so utilizing the tool to be able to help us do that is important. Now, let's say we're gonna change frames for a second. We all want to take time off, vacations, health matters, just de-stressing, staycations. We need to be able to plan accordingly. And so let's just say I'm thinking I want to take some time off at the end of October, but I don't know if that is the best time for me. Then I can say that, I'm planning to take PTO in around October 25th. Can you tell me what meetings are? Let's see. And now I'm telling Copilot to tell me what meetings are scheduled that week, and then I can make decisions on what I need to do. 23 meetings in 1 week, maybe I don't want to take PTO that week. Maybe the next question is, what's the next best time in my calendar? And maybe it'll tell me anytime because your wellness is a priority. But I don't think Copilot knows me that well yet. Making sense so far? We're
Yep,
managing
we're
our
on track.
calendar. What was that?
I said, yep, we're on track.
Perfect. The last thing that we had talked about with our calendar is blocking focus time. And so just asking Copilot to help me plan time in my schedule for focus time over the next, actually, let's go off of PTO. If I'm going to take PTO the week of the October 25th, I probably want to have some time blocked off in my calendar for maybe the few weeks leading up. So help me plan time in my schedule for focus time over the 2 weeks before 10/25. Let's see if Copilot can understand that one. Is it my most grammatically correct sentence? But look at that. It's going to help me with that. It's going to give me the information that I need in order to be able to block the time. If I just said block focus time on my calendar between 10:01 and 10:15, it's going to give me similar information, but it's not going to block the time right then and there. It's going to give me the information I need and then suggest the next steps. So you don't need to know exactly what you're asking for.
But that's a really helpful tip and reframe that you did, where the first time it was, what are all my meetings? Right. And that's still putting the burden on you to figure out what the good focus time block is going to be. But then the second time you're asking for the negative space. What are all the available times that I could be using?
Yes. And as you talk to Copilot, as you ask Copilot things, you'll get better at knowing the questions to ask. So the amount of time it takes to even generate the outcomes from Copilot will get faster and faster. And then there are those ways to save prompts. So if you're finding that a prompt is really successful and you want to be able to use it again, look at that. We just created a systematic approach to that particular workflow. Now, it's 1:14, and we do have a couple of things planned around creating and innovating. Let's see, we're also talking about taking meeting notes and value. And so I'm going to breeze through some of these things, but it will still be valuable, I promise. Can ask Copilot what would be the most valuable, but I don't know if I'm that good. All right. So now we have time to do our job because we skipped the chaos and we gave ourselves time to be in control of our time. And now we're going to create the stuff. There's content, there's data analysis, and the idea is that it takes less time to get to the bulk of what we're doing. So 80% maybe is done by technology, and the most beneficial 20% is done by the human or the person or the layer 9 insert tech joke here.
Well, and you said the bulk, but also the stuff you want to be doing.
Yes. Oh, I like that. It's not just a need, it's a want. I don't know. Sometimes I like to just stare at data. I do sometimes get excited through that. But also, there are times where I need to just get through it. So, on this, I actually have a neat little exercise to go through. Creating content can really be just about anything. But the example we're going to use here is I want to draft a press release based on key information that I already got from another team. And so I'm going to ask it to draft a press release from the key points in my demo folder on my desktop.
Still so impressed that you don't have to go grab the link to the demo folder and paste it in there. Things that I end up having to do all the time, trying to collaborate.
Yes. And I will say, here's so that you can see what those key points were. So here we are, bulleted, laid out. This might have been information that we collected through different people, different resources, got it jotted down quickly. Cool. Now we need the content. Look at that. Copilot button is right here, as I mentioned, but we're not going to do it there for consistency. And so here we are. I can now take this copy and I can throw it into my document if I want to read it right here. And I can see what it put together. I can make changes, like, oh, I don't really like this language. I could pull up Copilot and I could ask it to rewrite, but from a little bit more personable, or add some brevity to it or some lightness to it. I can tweak it even still from there. So again, getting to the key pieces of information into a full document and then massaging it till it's good and ready. The other thing you can do with it is proofread it and edit it. So again, we could go through here. Hopefully Copilot didn't need to proofread and edit the version it just created, but you could go in and ask it. Or if I wrote a document, I'm not always the most succinct. And so I could take my document and say, can you proofread this and make it shorter? Or what I like to do a lot is, can you restate this as a third grader, so that I know when I'm reading it, I am getting all the information intended, so that I don't accidentally infer meaning that wasn't there to begin with. All right, so that's creating the content. You're editing, the proofreading it, but now maybe you need to deliver this to the marketing director so that they can sign off on it. And before you do that, you're like, well, I want to give them a summary, but maybe not the key points. So instead, what I'm going to do here is create a summary, 3 sentences max, of this press release. Let's see, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, 3 sentences. And I pick on the 3rd grader. I have a 3rd grader. She would be proud. Microsoft has some cool new features. Skibbity. I don't actually know if that's the right word to use, but
bring in the Riz.
Bring in the Riz. And another helpful thing is, if you're creating documentation, if you're creating, a lot of times what we create is steps to do something. If you are then going to create a new way of working, you want to be able to train people on that. And maybe you want to get some clear expectations. So in this case, this document won't quite fit this, but let's see how we go here. How to summarize as a training document. See what happens. Policy documents are also. Okay, well, to summarize a general press release, here's the information it gave us.
That is kind of what you asked it. How do you summarize?
You're right. That's a good point. So then as I'm reading through this, if it doesn't quite get me what I want, there are some suggestions that they think are relevant. And I can give it thumbs up, I can give it thumbs down, and I can teach Copilot to do better next time, because I'm not going to blame myself. I'm going to blame the technology. So taking the time from creation to sharing, we're minimizing that.
So you can teach it to guess what you mean when you don't say what you mean more accurately.
That sounded like that sounded like riddle me this. When we're talking about creating content, the other thing that we do, we have a slide on this, but I'm going to skip through the slide and show you the benefit here. When you are in meetings and you're, a lot of times that's where the brainstorms are coming. That's where the information's coming. The juices are flowing. You're getting all the things. You want to participate in the meeting, but we can't multitask, says science. We task switch. And so if we are participating in the meeting, who's taking the notes? Copilot is. So unfortunately, I cannot, I would have loved to summarize this meeting, but webinars cannot be summarized or used with Copilot. And so we had a planning session for this webinar, and I'm going to ask, let's just see, what are the meeting? Let's talk about this. Recap the Copilot webinar meeting from, how about the last Copilot webinar meeting? Can she do it? It's looking. That bar is slow. The meeting was either really big or Copilot is stumped. Ta-da! Look at that. It even tells me what webinar or which meeting it summarized, so I can confirm that it is the right one I'm talking about. And I can copy and paste it somewhere else. The other thing I can do is, what are the tasks that came from that meeting? Call it pending tasks. And now we're full circle from where we were earlier. See how long it takes that one to do. The last, I do want to point out, Copilot for meetings doesn't just inherently take notes. You have to turn on transcription or record the meeting, because what it's doing is actually looking and listening for the language. It's not just inherently doing that. So you have to tell it to do that. And once you do, it gives you this information. It stores it. The video gets stored in Stream. The notes get taken in OneDrive, all in the same ecosystem that we've already talked about.
Oh, well, and the positive flip side to that too is if you're in a meeting that you don't want Copilot to necessarily be giving you responses on, don't record it, and it won't be part of the data that it's looking at.
Very true. All right. Well, see, we did talk through about creating content. We created the press release. We stayed informed with our meetings. You can summarize, you can recap the meeting, you can get the to-dos from the meeting and who those are assigned to. Data management is very much the same as creating content. You can use documents in Excel, and you can tell a story with data, right? You're looking at the data, you're finding out what data is important. So it might come from different sources. And then once we have that most relevant data identified, we need to be able to perform an analysis to get the insights that create meaning for the data. So we're telling the story, we're grabbing the data from the resources, we're analyzing it. And when I say we're analyzing it, we're having technology analyze it, and we're reviewing that information. And then once we have all that information, in the same way that we summarize the document, we can summarize our findings. So quickly moving through a data storytelling exercise. And now you have the story. So now you want to share it with the world, which means you're probably going to, if you're sharing something with your leadership team, then you're pulling the data, you're analyzing it, you're creating your findings, and now you need to wow them, the leadership team, with what you put together. So you want them to draft an email, and then you can have them draft a post to Teams, so that you're quickly getting the right information in front of people, and you can use your marketing guidelines to make sure that you hold strong with your brand if it's going externally.
Hey, I try to keep the brand consistent internally too.
That's right. We bleed blue and orange. So here's the whole ecosystem coming together. Dun, 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 dun. There are 2 versions of Copilot, and one of them is free, and spoiler alert, the other one is paid. So what does that mean? Just realized I wasn't sharing my full screen. The free Copilot is a great place to start. It's enabled on the web, so you log into Edge, and there is a, much like you would search Google, you would ask Bing's Copilot. And that foundational capability, the asking questions and getting information,
Natural language processing.
It's only pulling from the web. So as we all know that Wikipedia is a great tool, not everything on the internet is relevant or accurate. And so that is the limitation with Copilot free. Copilot for Microsoft 365 requires a certain license set, and the edition license for Copilot, which is $30 per user per seat, per user per month. What this does is it hooks in to the information in your suite of apps. So this is what we demoed today. This is in my data, in my organization, not just pulling from web sources. There are other tools out there, and we are very much vendor agnostic. And while there's a lot of use case for Microsoft Copilot, there certainly are other tools that are maybe specific to your applications. What we did here was kind of show you some of the ones that are more more general in their application. The tool isn't necessarily something that's critical for your business, but generally, there are apps that help you take meetings during notes, like Fathom. Slack obviously is their own communication platform, and so if you were to pay for that tool, you can also get the AI version of it, but the costs add up, whereas Copilot's able to cross all of these categories without being more than the $30 per month per user. We're at the end.
We made it.
We made it. So you're at this point, you've said, all right, you've told me why I should care about AI, and you told me how it could help my business. Specifically, here are some easy, low-hanging fruit basket options for getting your team to work smarter, not harder. The next thing is, if you're interested, we should talk more about it. We've got Michael Sampson on our project side that can help answer questions from your technical environment, how it might look. Your client success manager, your account director, your consultant, we can all be a part of that conversation and get you the materials that you need, and ultimately get the pieces in place to get you guys creating.
Being creative instead of creating.
There you go. I'm glad you caught that one for me because it just wasn't coming out naturally.
Hey, Copilot, what did I say at the beginning of this meeting?
Copilot has a fun time trying to keep up with me. All right. Well, that is it.